much about going out and cussing. It's about going out and saying something, because to me the cussing is all, that's all good and fine, except that when you shove by all that, if you took all the cuss words out of a franchise promo, I think that the promo would still stand up as being pretty strong in its delivery of a message, whether it's on an angle, his opponent, whatever. But today when I see guys going out and get indie shows and even, some of the bigger companies, when they try to, censor them with a beep or whatever, when you get through all that and you cut away the vulgarity, suddenly there's no meat left on the plate. It's just cussing for cussing's sake. I'll never forget the first time Taz went out and did a promo after he came out of the Tazmaniac gimmick. And his first promo literally was, fuck, shit, fuck, shit. He thought it was just go out there and cuss and you'll get over. Well, he found out very quickly and became a very good promo on ECW that there's a little bit more to it than that. So we have to find, you're right, absolutely correct. We have to find that balance as to what it's going to be. But I think in the initial launch, this relaunch of the product and brand, since we don't have the episodic weekly television going in, that will probably be a little more liberal on the microphone than we would be if we did have those things. But you can guarantee it won't be everybody going out there and getting on the microphone. And one of the things that we'll make sure of is that when they go through that curtain, they'll know whether or not they should get on the microphone or not. This won't be the freedom as it was in ECW back in the original day, which was nice. But when you have everybody going out and getting on the microphone, like you said, by the time you get down to the semi-main event and the main event matches, suddenly that's no longer so special and it gets a little bit boring.
That's true. Mikhail?
Yeah, so you are, obviously you're doing this Extreme Reunion. It sounds like you have an incredible, set of people working with you on this. What's the end game for you guys? Where is this? What's the goal for this new Extreme Reunion? Is it just this show? What's the bigger goal? Are we looking to get back on TV? Like, where do you go with it?
Well, we have investors that will be there Saturday night. We're not identifying them to anybody, and we're not introducing them to anybody other than the partners, because we don't want them to be on mark from the boys and from the fans. We just want them to come in and watch the show and see if they organically connect to it in a way that they would like to invest. TNA is in such a precarious position right now. I've heard that checks have started bouncing there, and one of the guys told me, yeah, but they clear by the second or third time. And I choked on my tongue. I said, that's not a good sign. Whether it's the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth time it takes you to get a check cleared, that's a very bad sign. I don't look. The rating for them is beyond a hemorrhage at this point. They're well over $150 million in debt in the red. And their ratings have actually gone down since Hogan, Bischoff, and Flair have come on board. I don't know how much longer Panda Energy, the CFO of Panda Energy or the board of Panda Energy, is going to continue with this game of letting Dixie have her little plaything in Orlando, because clearly it's not been a success financially for them or a successful venture. That said, Spike Network has invested heavily. The big contracts for those guys are through Spike. So if Panda walks away today, they still carry some of the bigger contracts through Spike. How they talk Spike into that, I have no idea. But it puts Spike in a very precarious position. If Panda walks away today and TNA Wrestling no longer exists, my guess is TNA Spike would start to pay those contracts. Who better than a company to bring them a ready-made product that has a ready-built fan base connected to it. So we're literally going to be watching all of those things as we go forward. The end game, there is no end game. The end game for us right now, if I had a magic wand and could say 5-10 years from now, let's take a peek and see where we are, would be to put Vince out of business and put Dixie out of business. The latter, I think, will happen sooner than later. Vince, I think, if he doesn't figure out something different about how to portray his young talents, I don't see how a company like that costs literally millions of dollars just to turn the lights on in the morning can continue on when, after spending tens of millions of dollars on advertising and over a year to promote it, couldn't even sell their WrestleMania out. When I was a kid coming up in the business, as soon as they announced the WrestleMania, it sold out, including 3 that had 93,000 people at it. The fact that they didn't sell out there, the signs are really poor for those big two companies right now. From the ratings, Vince's stock is at historic lows. His ratings, even though they've come up a hair, are still at historic lows. I don't know how long that company can continue on that path without making some sort of substantive change. before they have to wave the white flag and start downsizing or pulling back financially. But that's a huge, gigantic company that, like I said, just to turn the lights on in the morning costs millions of dollars. So I don't know how long they can continue down that path. What I guess I'm trying to say is the future of wrestling, to me, from all the numbers across the board, from TNA and WWE, are very poor. For the average layman listening out there right now, all they have to do to get a look at how successful or not successful WWE is being, take a trip to your local Walmart. When you used to go to Walmart 3-4 years ago, the WWE had products literally in every department, from groceries to DVDs and video games to toys to housewares, clothing. They were in every department. You can now find a few T-shirts, a few things, videos and DVDs back in the electronics department. So the fact that they've downsized, Walmart that is downsized their carrying of WWE products, that will tell you if they were selling, they certainly would still be carrying them. The fact that they're not carrying them tells me that all these things we're talking about, the numbers dropping, the stock valuations dropping to historic lows, the across-the-board ratings hemorrhage, the fact that they can't sell out the WrestleMania tells me that the WWE, even though they're the quote-unquote big company in wrestling, ain't as strong as they used to be. And the end game for us is to simply step right into that path. I know that sounds pretty grandiose at this point. Right now our focus is 1,000,000% on getting through Saturday, providing the fans and letting them see that what our vision is of the product is to continue on with that revolution that started in the 90s and bring that magic back. And I guess it can be summed up with a 10-year-old boy that I had met in Toronto at the Wrestle Reunion last weekend. Elevator door opens up and a 10-year-old boy, 10, 11-year-old boy gets on the elevator and looks up and sees me, and immediately his eyes and his mouth pop wide open. And I'm thinking he must think I'm somebody else. He knows wrestlers are in the building, and he must think I'm somebody else because I've been off television nationally longer than this kid has been alive. And right as I think that, this little boy says to me, "Franchise," points to me and says, "Franchise." So he obviously did know who I was. So I asked him, laughing, "How in the world do you know who the hell I am?" And he said, "Well, my dad's been showing me ECW on YouTube." And I said, "What do you think of that stuff on YouTube?" He said, "That stuff is," got so excited and he's so animated into it. He said, "That stuff is amazing." Now, the average person would be sitting here like here. I think one of the questions you posed a few minutes ago was, where do we plan on taking the business, or what are we going to do differently? That boy's comments tell me all I need to know. And I can bolster that by my two sons who are 11 and 6. I've only ever shown them one wrestling match of me from ECW for obvious reasons. I don't want them seeing, some of the more outlandish things that we did there. But I showed them me versus Bam Bam Bigelow from Pittsburgh, from the Golden Dome, 1997 November to Remember. And now preface that with usually when they're watching it, and it's rare, they'll literally watch it if they're flipping through the channels and see it on. They'll stop and watch it for a few minutes, and then continue on flipping through the channels. They don't, to be sure, they don't sit and watch 1 hour of either program. But as they were sitting there watching the match with Bam Bam Bigelow at the November to Remember 97, they were spellbound by what they were watching. And I'm sure part of it was because they were watching their dad, but they were watching the action, and for days afterwards were saying, "Hey, when Bam Bam threw you out to the floor, and when this happened, and when that happened, and when you threw him through the table," the questions were pointed towards the action, not towards the personalities, not towards the pyro, not towards the commentary, not towards the crowd, not towards the lights or anything else. It was towards the action in the ring. And this was a while ago, so probably 5 and 10 at the time. Same thing with this 10-year-old boy I met in Toronto. So I firmly believe that if we can connect this product to the fans, to our fan base, but remember, in that fan base, a lot of those people now have kids just like me that want their kids to see something different than what they're getting with the quote-unquote big two. And I think once we do that, literally, again, what the old saying is, what is old will be new. When these kids see wrestling moves and see, the tables and the chairs and the storylines that don't insult their intelligence and the action, the question is, will they come on board with it? I've got to believe the answer to that is yes.
That's great. That's totally a great point. Nobody worries about the action. That's where it's messed. Well, you know what? Let's get you out on this question. Let's talk about the actual show Saturday. You got a main event with Sabu. Talk to me about your main event and how it's going to go down.
Well, we had so many potential main events to put in there. I personally, as you know, I hate to call myself the booker of the show because it's more of a collaborative effort. Although the storylines, I'm the one that gives the final approval and okay to them. So in a way, that Troy Martin would much rather book himself out of the show and sit back in the dressing room and run the event because I'm such a mark for all these guys. And it's a lot less work for me. The building is 10 million things need to be done. So that set up front. I also realized that as the central character to the original ECW, that it's imperative that I be involved in some sort of match on the show. Now, we've heard from literally dozens of people, and many of them the boys, saying, you ought to be wrestling Raven, you ought to be wrestling Al Snow, you ought to be wrestling Tommy Dreamer, you ought to be wrestling Tommy or Terry Funk, you ought to be wrestling Taz, you ought to be wrestling, literally everybody on the card. And since we can't have me wrestling everybody, I wish I could, but since I can't, it came down to us as what is the best main event from the talent that we have with us on this show that we can proffer up to our fans and to our fan base that A, plays off the history and the legacy of the original ECW, and B, can give the fans the best match on this coming Saturday night, and C, gives us the greatest leverage moving forward, in other words, the longest legs. Sabu is in phenomenal shape. I spent the past weekend with him up in Wisconsin, saw him wrestling. He had 2 phenomenal 3-way dances up there with Freedom Pro Wrestling. I saw the old Sabu back. And for me, I can still remember in the ECW arena, the first time sitting in the back watching him on the monitor. And when he first hit, the first time I had seen him hit the triple jump moonsault. And I literally popped out of my seat like a jumping jack. It was so impressive and so compelling to watch and so different from anything I'd ever seen that I was instantly hooked and have been a mark for Sabu ever since. I think Sabu has a lot of life left in him, and I'm so thankful, not for his sake that he's had to go through it, but I'm so thankful for our sake that Vince McMahon and Dixie Carter don't see the value in him, because if they did, and if they could capitalize on it, I don't think their parts would be in the condition they're in, and we'd be up a creek without a paddle, because Sabu is an integral part. He's one of the pillars that built the original ECW, and it's like a table. If you take any leg away from the table totters over. Sabu clearly is one of those legs, and we need him involved in this to get the best main event that we can get out, but also to keep this whole experiment from tottering over.
Thank you for coming on Ring Rust Radio. You got anything else before you go, man?
No, that's great, man. I appreciate the time. Look forward to meeting you guys, and anybody else that's in that Philadelphia area, make sure you get out there. There are very few seats left right now, but like I said, get there at 9 o'clock in the morning for the meet and greet and spend the day, because we're going to have one hell of a fucking time this Saturday night in Philadelphia.
Awesome. Thank you, Shane. That's his franchise, Shane Douglas. Thank you, brother, and you have a good luck Saturday night, man. I hope
appreciate it, guys. Look forward to seeing you guys there, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you.